All right, I took a bite and I'm the one talking.
And you
Maybe in the meantime, I can just welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this workshop honoring the 25th anniversary of Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security. We're really looking forward to getting into a deep discussion, interacting with you. This is being hosted by the NGO CSW New York Peace and Gender Equality Working Group, along with SEED. It's been really lovely getting to know Ilke and designing this workshop together. So I think I've bought Ivy enough time to hand it over to her.
Thank you, Lily. So yes, we have such great appreciation for everyone involved in organizing this. Actually, it's a culmination of months of work over time and our very busy schedules, I guess. But there have been various iterations of the concept note. So there's definitely been lots of thought into crafting the program today. So I hope you're ready to have some engagement, because it's not just presentations, and hopefully it's interactive, and so it's hopefully something that you're going to definitely learn something, but maybe you'll learn something about yourself as well in the process. And I just wanted to know, I can't see who's in the room. Can I see the screen of the audience? Is it possible? No.
When they're sharing the screen.
Oh, because they're sharing the screen. Because I wanted to ask how many of you have.
I will stop sharing and I'll reshare again. 1 minute.
Oh,
look at that.
okay, so it's nice to see who's in online. Hello, welcome again. So how many of you, like just a raise of hands, have heard of compassionate leadership before coming to this meeting, this event? Have you heard of it before? Compassionate leadership. Also, this will be very interesting for you, for many of you, I think. Yeah, I didn't see that many hands online, some hands. Nice to have you. And so, well, today you're going to learn that it's a real thing. It's not just words. Yeah, there's thought behind it, and there's actually evidence also behind it. So you're yeah, get ready for that. And I'm going to first introduce Dr. Ilke Dag Hustings. I'm sorry, I should have practiced your name. She's been a peace practitioner and researcher for over 15 years and a peace activist for over 2 decades. And her educational background covers security and development and security, identity, and peace building. She co-authored and coordinated myriad peace building programs such as the Civil Society Dialogue, Cyprus, Community Media Center, Access Info Cyprus, Play for Peace, and Engage, Do Your Part for Peace. And she joined the Center for Sustainable Peace and Democratic Development, which is SEED, that's the acronym, in 2016. And she's currently the Director General and Head of Partnerships and Growth. And just to share that SEED works with international development organizations, governments, and civil society leaders to design and implement people-centered and evidence-based strategies for promoting peaceful, inclusive, and resilient societies. And their approach focuses on understanding the root causes of societal problems by developing an evidence-based theory of change, which is empirically tested. So please, if I can open the floor to you, Dr. Ilke, and set the scene for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for such a humbling introduction as well. I'm going to share my screen again. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
So we see it in presentation mode, Ilke. I don't know if you wanted us to see your presentation notes as well. There we go. Much better.
Brilliant. So I'll briefly talk about what we're what we would like to achieve today, the goals, introduce the rest of our panelists, our speakers, and then we've got a very packed agenda with a lot of interactive elements and small group activities. So I'll keep it as brief as possible, so we save time for discussion and reflection. Overall, this workshop was first born from a shared sense of urgency as we witnessed this convergence of violent conflict, democratic erosion, and polarized narratives across geographies. And we're more and more called to ask not only what kind of peace we're working toward, but what kind of leadership can take us there. I'm originally from Cyprus. We just had presidential elections a week ago. And of course, a president or a prime minister is only maybe like the most stereotypical type of leader that we can imagine when it comes to policy and for countries, and their leaderships cultures happening on many levels, from household level to community, to regional, to national, to intergovernmental, right? So what kind of leadership can take us to this kind of peace and cohesion and a resilient society that we're working toward? So today's event, this workshop, centers on that powerful premise that compassionate leadership, a leadership model grounded in care, courage, intentionality, accountability, is not a soft alternative, but a strategic necessity for the women, peace, and security agenda. And with this workshop, we want to spark a dialogue on how different gender-based values and attributes affect geopolitical trajectories and peace-building paradigms. We don't necessarily have a lot of data and answers to these questions, but this is more of a constructive and reflective dialogue to better position these notions, evidence, and our approaches, to investigate how human insecurity, trauma, and conflict simultaneously undermine and catalyze women's leadership in peacebuilding, and to assess the value of evidence in shaping effective gender-responsive policy and programming. So we've got an amazing, very inspiring panel of speakers, colleagues and peers that worked very hard to put today together. We've been in touch cooking this for a long time. Ivy Koek, I know you're our moderator today. You probably need no introduction, but allow me to also introduce you and recognize you and everything you've done for women, peace, and security agenda, for gender equality and women's empowerment throughout your career. Ivy focuses on intersection between gender, climate security, peace, and disarmament, as well as approaches that promote human rights through non-formal education. Her advocacy reflects a commitment to compassionate feminist leadership and building a culture of peace and promoting interfaith collaboration for gender equality and peace building. We have Liliane, who's made this workshop happen. We're very, very thankful for your convening and for helping us cook this, Liliane. Liliane is a representative of the Baha'i international community to the United Nations. She focuses on gender equality and peace, drawing on her strong background in diversity and in inclusion. And she's a staunch believer that lasting peace demands the full participation of women across all levels of society. And Liliane brings compassionate leadership perspective that integrates spiritual values with social change and advancing gender equal and peaceful communities. We've got Kristen Ali Eglinton. She foregrounded the compassionate leadership for the workshop, and she's been such a positive inspiration throughout our meetings. She's the co-founder and executive director of Footage Foundation, an international NGO that uses creative research and digital storytelling to empower marginalized voices. Do check it out. I haven't heard about Footage Foundation before. Our paths crossed for this workshop, and it was mind-blowingly inspirational and very, very amazing collaborative work. Kristen is an applied social scientist with a PhD from the University of Cambridge and over 20 years experience in pioneering ethnographic and multimedia methods to elevate stories of vulnerable communities. And with Kristen's leadership, Footage Foundation has built the world's largest digital storytelling platform, capturing women's experiences of violence, and received awards for its innovative approaches to peace building. We have Dr. Nike Oduwole has been a true inspiration throughout. She's a medical doctor. She served as the permanent secretary in the Lagos State Civil Service, as well as in ministries, including Ministry of Health and Ministry of Women's Affairs. As the second vice president of the NCWS, she advocates for women's welfare, for community health, for ethical leadership and governance, and unifies women's groups towards galvanizing their policy influence. And Dr. Oduwole's career reflects a blend of medical knowledge with civil service acumen and a passionate advocacy experience, making her a respected and inspirational voice for gender inclusive peace building. We also have Marie-Sophie from Oxfam and Lister Chapeta from UN Women joining our panel, joining our workshop. We're very happy and honored to have them here. Marie-Sophie, I can't see the room. It's a little bit far and small, but Marie-Sophie is a senior humanitarian peacebuilding advisor at Oxfam. And prior to her role, she served as the humanitarian portfolio lead and gender and humanitarian specialist at UN Women for many years. And Lister Chapeta is a gender and mediation policy specialist at UN Women, working to integrate gender perspectives into conflict mediation and peace processes. So that's who we've got that cooked this workshop and thought about it and brought bringing some insights and takeaways into the room. But I see many names and many pictures online and in person, and really hope we will have a very stimulating, productive reflection together. I will skip myself. Ivy kindly introduced me, so thank you for being here. I'm honored to open the space and look forward to building and reflecting alongside you today. And I will pass the floor back to Ivy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kiel. And thank you for the introductions. Yeah, I don't have to introduce Lily, who's going to do our activity, our first engagement activity. It's going to be different in person and online. So she's going to explain that to you now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ivy, and thank you, Dr. Ike. It's been wonderful to think about this activity, this workshop throughout the summer. And as was mentioned, we want this to not be your, you go and you sit and you listen to somebody speaking at you, but that you actually get to engage with the people in the room, whether it's virtual or here in the room. So we'll start with an interactive portion. For those of us who are in the physical space, we're going to do an activity that I won't call it an icebreaker, but a connecting activity. And we have facilitators online who are going to facilitate a conversation about the types of leadership that we recognize around us. And then we'll all convene again back together to do a word cloud activity. So I think we will now go into that. Those who are online, you're going to be invited to into a breakout session. So we'll have Ilke facilitating one group, and then we have Kristen and Dr. Nike facilitating the other. And this should take us about 30 minutes or so. So we'll convene back in the room at around 10 New York time, so that we can do the interactive word cloud together. So those online, I hope you enjoy your discussion, and we'll see you in about 25 minutes or so. Yeah. Okay. So I think we'll mute ourselves.
Sí, que me acuerdo.
Yeah.
Pero she's
Yeah.
Wait, you are answering all the questions that I didn't know I had. Everything out of her mouth is like, and then you can do this, and then you can do this, and then just.
She's amazing.
Oh, they're filing back. Yeah.
She shines the light on other people.
No, they're
That's
actually
me.
better.
And all of a sudden, she was shining the light
Sorry,
on me.
the
I
mic
was
is-
like, wait a minute, I'm just learning from you.
Everybody's coming back.
Okay.
Sorry, team.
No, it's good, it's very good.
I want to make sure I was spelling right.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
Okay,
I thought we had until past.
I know, I'm so sorry, okay.
we didn't do very well. I mean, we did great, but we were only on question moving into 3.
We got lonely without you.
Ah,
We
well, we
moved
had
a
a
little
rich discussion. It was a
Yeah.
rich discussion.
we moved a little bit too fast in the in-person group. But actually, one way that we could continue the conversation is 2 things. Maybe people can go ahead to already start doing the Mentimeter. So I think many of us have participated in Mentimeters before, but basically you scan the QR code and it would take you to an online page so that you ask the question, please provide 2 words that you believe best reflect the feminist qualities of leadership that are most needed in leadership behavior.
Mm.
So provide those 2 words and they'll start to appear in this word cloud. You're more than welcome to answer more than once if you would like, just so that we can see what are the words that stand out the best, the most.
3 choices, so.
Oh, yeah.
3.
Enter as many as you like. And you can do it more if you would like to do that. And then maybe while people are doing that, I don't know if Ilke and Kristen, Dr. Nike, if there are questions that you didn't get to discuss, you can pose those questions and we could offer thoughts as people are filling out the word cloud. How does that sound?
Mm-hmm. Sounds beautiful. I just put the questions back in the chat. I hope I put them for everyone. And could you give us, is there a link again for the Mentimeter? Does everybody have it?
I can, I think, I don't know.
I
if
can
you're
look up here. I think I can find it. I'll put it in.
able to access it just because I'm sharing the screen.
I got it. I got it.
You got it? Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, there you go for everyone from our group, me and Dr. Nike's group that didn't get a chance to do this.
Yeah, we didn't get to that as well. I thought we had 15 more minutes. So we were moving to question 3, talking about examples
That's where we were.
of leaders. We haven't, sorry, question 4. So examples of leadership. We haven't had a chance to discuss barriers that exist that prevent these qualities from being recognized and values, but the discussion was naturally actually going there, that this is not compassionate leadership is not only an individual, but it's about how we build cohorts and how we build people-centered teams around ourselves. So we were moving towards into that discussion.
Do people want to offer thoughts on that question? Perhaps if there are people from your group who wanted to share, this could be an opening.
Ify, I think you had the mic before we were moved. You were in mid-sentence.
Yes,
Please
yes.
go ahead.
Okay, what I was saying is that it's very, very important for people to have the right concept of leadership. For people to understand that the fact that you are in the position of leadership does not mean that you are the know-it-all or be-it-all. It's just an opportunity for you to contribute your own quota to humanity. It's very, very important that people begin to understand that you are only the first amongst equals, okay? Because having the wrong concept is what is giving us bad leadership all over the world. Having that wrong concept of entitlement, of I'm the be-it-all and I know it all, and that is what is contributing to bad leadership, and equally bad followership, because once you have a bad leader, people tend to do things that ordinarily they would not do. I don't know. I think I better just stop here. Thank you.
That's pretty much on the nose.
Yeah.
What about you, Kristen? Were there questions from your group that you didn't get to that would be good to bring up? Oh, you're muted.
Got it. We just, well, we were starting to share examples from number 3, which was really beautiful. And actually should we go back to the last person that was speaking on question 3? And now I'm gonna try to find you. Oh, there's so many people I'm looking through. Who remembers who had the mic last?
Because,
You don't have to find me, I'm here.
There you are. Okay. I loved your example. We loved your example. Would you want to repeat
that? Was a
that?
beautiful one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was sharing that one of the examples of compassionate leadership I experienced firsthand is my mother. She's the model that I use in when you talk about compassionate leadership, because she was able to, or she's still alive, she's able to, and all the time, use her voice in swinging decisions, trying to move decisions that will hitherto be disastrous to become more healthy and sustainable. And even in the family and in the community, in the local church, you will see her always ready to put her first foot forward and also drag other women into making those decisions. So, in our society, there is this thing where women try to step back, leave all the decisions, but she has a very strong voice that has just a way of pushing the needle and making that change, and because we always have this, I use an example of the fact that right in our community, there is this thing that men thinks like one way lane, they just think straight, they don't, but we women have a way of looking at different factors before they come to a decision. And so each time that you find her in part of a group or a leadership thing in the community, she is always that voice that people will, oh, she's there, okay, everything will go well. So she has that thing about her, and I love it. And that's why when you see me trying to raise my voice, it's because someone went ahead of me to always make her voice heard. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And thank you so much, everybody, for inputting your words into the Mentimeter. There are a number of qualities that were shared about what's needed in leadership behavior. Somebody who's encouraging, somebody who takes the perspective of others into account, confidence, kindness, open-mindedness. But then the ones that are bigger are the ones I think that were inputted multiple times. So like empathy, generosity, thoughtfulness, inclusive listening are the ones that really stood out. So I'm curious, just looking back at some of the questions that that the friends online were moving towards, like what stops individuals from being able to, what barriers exist that prevent these qualities from being recognized or valued? Because it's not that people don't have the capacity to show these qualities, we all do, but somehow if these things are not valued in the space, then we don't work on showing them or strengthening them. So I don't know if maybe we can think of what are the barriers that get in the way of this.
Go ahead. Should I just jump in? The two words, I mean, we could have actually, first of all of these words are so interconnected and wonderful. But the two words that jumped at me while we were talking is trust and fear. And I have seen that in meetings where people are reacting in a certain way because either they don't trust themselves or they don't trust the person who's talking. And this goes to everything that's happening in this world too, as we reflect on what's going on. And of course, fear is the natural human, what are we afraid of? Fear really does disrupt. And of course, I'm sure there's other words too.
And then it gets in the way of being able to trust people. If you're afraid, that maybe it's not, you're not afraid of that person, but you're afraid of the situation, what could happen, or
Yeah.
Please, Katerina.
I think picking up on this, on the fear, I think the fear is the reaction to insecurity, basically.
Mm.
I mean, if I think of people in a position of power that I met and that behaved in a certain way that didn't feel right or appropriate to me, I was able to always trace it back to a deep sense of insecurity. So that basically you have to.
Really true.
So
True, I wanna cry.
Yeah.
I say over and over, I see the pattern.
Yeah, and it could be, I don't know, I've seen it like professional insecurity, like you are there as a chief of something or like, whatever, a high level position and you think maybe you don't have the qualities to be there, which to be completely honest, it's something that I think a lot of people fear. Like I'm still feeling that way. I started a new job in May and half of the time I'm still feeling like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I doing it? Am I doing it right? Like I feel still very insecure. So it's normal, it's human. Everybody feels that way, but maybe for some people it's, I don't know, it lasts longer or they never recover from it basically, or it's more at a personal level. Of course, it's not only professional, it's more, probably that's the most important part.
Yeah.
The baggage we bring into
Yeah,
the
exactly.
circle, right?
Some sort of baggage
Trauma.
that they have of like not really deserving to, or that I don't know, feeling threatened that like as if people would always, that they have to defend themselves basically. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe, I know we have to go to the panel discussion, but I don't know if there may be like one or two people more who want to share before we go to the next session.
Can I just say something about what the young lady just said about insecurity?
Please,
Can you hear me? Okay.
yes, we can hear you well.
I thought she was gonna say something else actually, because what she made me think of was the insecurity of the individual who is supposedly the leader.
Yeah.
That's
what you
the
said.
most dangerous,
That's what you said.
not the subordinate, not the
Yeah,
person who is
I
answering
meant
to
the
them.
leader, yeah.
No,
Oh,
Diane,
okay.
Diane, she was talking about the insecurity of the supposed person in leadership.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's where I think it goes back to what the young lady said about how we define what a leader is.
Mm.
And I think that, it's hard to keep some egos in check, but that's what that really requires. And for those that are confident in what they do, then you don't have that ego problem, the
Yeah.
confidence. And I think that's where there's a disconnect, because some people will then feel slighted that you even question. It's not negative criticism. Some criticism is very positive and constructive. It depends on whether or not the person is receptive enough to listen and not feel like you're beating them up or thinking you're better than them or anything like that. And I think that from what colleagues of mine have told me, it happens all over. That's like a universal trait. And then if you add gender difference with it, that's where we have that powder keg, where people don't feel confident enough to say, okay, maybe I made a mistake, or maybe I'll rethink that. It's very difficult, I find, for some people to say, maybe I need to look at this again. Maybe I need to reconsider what my original thought was about this, that, and the other. So I think that kind of empathy, that kind of gentleness with each other is sometimes what's lacking. Before you go out to the public, be gentle with each other and the operation within. I think that has to be part of that foundation first. And then, as we were saying in our group, the role models, you try to take lessons from the people that you want to emulate, because those are the people we use as our mentors. At least I know I have. People that I have used as mentors are people that quietly, efficiently get the job done, have a gentle demeanor. But when they are strong about something, they're strong about something, and they can give you a reason why. They can give you a reason why. There's a logic behind their their decision. Those are the people I respect most. Whether or not I agree with them or not is not the issue. But you can have a dialogue with someone that you disagree with and still have tea with them. I mean, it's not a hate thing. I think that's what compassionate leadership is, in my understanding. And so that's what we need to be the role models for, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, somebody mentioned culture.
Yeah, I wish to speak on
Yes.
culture because it affected.
Culture, is that what it was?
Yeah, I'm actually, I know that now has like opened a whole conversation, but I think we will have another opportunity to discuss again during the second breakout. So if maybe we can hold on to these thoughts, I'll hand it over to Ivy. We'll do the discussion and we'll have a moment again to speak with each other. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Over to you.
Yes. So thank you, Lily. Thank you for that, like really engaging, in the room, we did a yarn exercise, and this web, and it was very, very interesting and fun. So I wanted to make a little edit there. Ilke had, introduced the speakers earlier, and we do not have Lister here, today. She was not able to join us from UN Women. However, all the other speakers are here. They're all online, actually. And so I'm going to open the panel discussion, hand it over to them. First, we're gonna hear from Dr. Kristen Eglinton and Dr. Nike. They're going to speak about compassionate leadership. And then Dr. Ilke will follow. And Marie-Sophie Pedersen is also online. We can spotlight all of them. And then we'll unspotlight Diane, and then have all the speakers on screen. And please just take it away. I know you have prepared a presentation for us. So we'll hand it to you two first.
Thank you so much. So Dr. Nike, I'll start off and then we'll go right into you then. Thank you so much. So greetings, colleagues and compassion workers and feminists and friends. And to our organizers, Lily and Ivy and Dr. Ike and Dr. Nike, Dr. Ilke and Dr. Nike, I just wanted to say also to Ilke, thank you for that beautiful introduction. I felt exactly the same about you when I was reading about your work. So I look forward to more conversations. And thank you all so much for having me and for creating this really meaningful space. I'm going to be reading so that I don't miss out on anything. So I want to start with this. If we are to achieve the systems change that is urgently needed to truly recognize and value all the ways women in all their diversity lead, it is essential we understand our terms and critically reflect on the foundations of our leadership practices. Only then can we begin to transform not just who our leaders are, but the very ways leadership is enacted and valued. I want to speak very briefly and hopefully lucidly about some of the nuanced differences between feminist leadership and compassionate leadership and the spaces where they meet. Because the ways I understand these terms come from lived experience, I want to share that I speak as a feminist participatory social scientist, working often in authoritarian states with survivors of violence and displacement. My work and my life are grounded in feminist inquiry and compassion. I see the pain of power every day, and I'm continuously seeking ways to open access and level power with both my colleagues and those I serve. At the heart of his thinking is thinking about epistemology, simply how knowledge is created and whose knowledge counts. Because when we speak of leadership, we are really speaking about ways of knowing, about how we understand power, relationship, and responsibility. What follows reflects how we've come to understand and practice these forms of leadership at Footage, the feminist research and action ecosystem I co-founded over 16 years ago. Feminist leadership at its best is transformative. It asks how power moves, how it is held, shared, or withheld. It is political and participatory, prioritizing intersectionality and accountability. Like feminist research itself, it listens, co-creates, and rehumanizes the spaces it touches, and it can include compassion. Compassionate leadership comes from another lineage, one of care, ethics, and presence. It begins with the willingness to see and respond authentically to another's humanity. It asks how we move through power, and as we move through power, how we stay in relationship with ourselves, with others, and with the world that we're trying to repair. We understand compassion as empathy plus action, that condition that enables trust and co-creation. In practice, these two ways of knowing are intertwined. They meet in reflexivity, that bending back on ourselves, an awareness of self and other. They meet in service and inclusion, and in the act of humanizing power. Both move toward well-being for self and other, something often overlooked in policy, yet essential to peace. Where feminist leadership might seek equity and ask how we dismantle the underpinnings of power in various spaces, compassionate leadership asks how we disperse hierarchy and stay in relationship as we do this work. Both require the courage to remain open and human in the midst of power. At their best, both advance through relation, each carrying the capacity to reconnect what power divides. In that sense, feminist and compassionate leadership move through one another, each deepening the other, together shaping how transformation becomes relation and relation becomes change. Change begins in relationship, in how we meet one another and how what we make together possible. Beyond theory, in context of conflict, women in all their diversity are often leading, often unseen and unnamed, through acts of repair that accelerate transformation and hold communities together. We must work to make this everyday leadership visible, intentionally naming and measuring the practices that systems too often overlook and undervalue. Because for genuine change, it is not simply enough to recognize these forms. We must also reshape the structures and narratives that define what is visible, what is valued, and what is counted as leadership. That is the everyday leadership sustaining peace, the vision of women, peace, and security, leadership that endures when power is shared and compassion is built in. Leadership in that sense is the practice of connection, of humanizing, and of relationship as daily work, seeing and being seen, holding space for each other to rise. And that is the work of both compassion and of feminism, to keep seeing, learning, and creating spaces where others can lead too. Thank you.
Wow. Kristen, where, can we get a transcript?
Exactly. I'll send it out. You can all have it.
Wow.
Us, we were like trying to take notes and we can't.
You must
You
share
all
your
are the compassionate leaders. I'll tell you that
Can
right
we
now.
please?
Thank you.
We're like wind in our hair. Yeah.
It's almost poetry.
Yeah, it's very poetic. Thank
Well, you know what I'm like.
No,
My first
no.
degree was in art, you know, I can't help myself.
It's a very short handbook.
I was going to
Okay, we all agree here. It's short and like Kristen about.
Oh my God. Okay, we were just talking about how compassionate leadership uplifts each other. So thank you all. I couldn't do it without you. It's a joint act of leadership. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Too humble.
Okay, Dr. Mike, please.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here and to work with fantastic people. My own is just to continue with Kristen's. And I want to stand on the existing protocols. I'm going to talk about the compassionate leadership. I'll start by giving us the emphasis that matter a lot. The first is that we should empathize with strength. We're not going to be weak while trying to empathize. We should care, then understanding instead of focusing only on authority, control, or results. A compassionate leader also considers the human needs and well-being as being pertinent. How do we achieve success? These are the key criteria. Number one, you empathize with others. This is different from sympathizing alone, but putting yourself in the position of that person. We must listen actively. We must support and care for our subordinates or community members. We must respect and create inclusion. People's voices must be heard and allowed to matter. There must be balanced accountability, and we must lead by example. The benefits of compassionate leadership are one, higher morale and motivation are built up. There is lower stress levels for both the leaders and their followers. It also encourages personal growth because emotionally the followers are stable. It builds trust. It enhances collaboration. It reduces conflicts, and it boosts productivity. These are my humble submissions to compassionate leadership.
Beautiful.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Filled in some areas.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
That was.
Very complimentary to the other
Yeah.
doctor.
All the doctors
We
in
thought
the
so.
house.
We thought so.
All these doctors in the house.
So we'll now hear from Dr. Ilke. You have a presentation you're going to share with us with some, giving us some evidence to this compassionate
Yes.
leadership.
Yes, yes, I'm almost a little bit embarrassed. I'm with all this poetry and I'm going to kind of bring it down with stats and numbers.
I think it all complements each other, so this is great. Thank you.
Should we share the screen or, okay, you're sharing.
Okay.
Yes, I am sharing screen. 1 minute. All right. Okay. Swap.
Oh, so, okay, I forgot to do the handouts. Do you want me to do them after you speak?
Oh, yes, yes, I was actually going to say something about them and I forgot. Yeah, so we've got kindly Ivy printed some handouts. They are not directly the slides you're going to see, but they are visualizations of some of the data I would like to share with you. Some of them I'm not going to put on the screen, but I thought it might be interesting to scribble and annotate on them and then kind of help you digest the data a little bit. What I want to share in this section is some takeaways and patterns from various countries and data sets that we do. I don't want to kind of take too much of your time and energy getting lost in numbers and statistics, but see what they're telling us in terms of patterns and how does this complement our understanding of compassionate leadership and why it's needed for peace building and for social cohesion. This is only like the tip of the iceberg in terms of data, and this workshop kind of triggered this investigation in our organization to look at it with a wider lens, because often we run the score study, the score index, and do these studies looking at a country, and within a country, sometimes a subnational level. We try to make it really contextual and close to the community. But with this workshop, I was kind of taking a couple of steps back to see what patterns emerge. Yes, sorry?
Your screen, it shows us a join meeting Zoom screen.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, 1 minute.
Yeah, for the people online.
Yes.
Yeah.
I shared a
Alright.
link in the chat, and that's the handout that she just referenced, because we're looking at it physically here in person, but this is just a reference.
Can you see the slides now?
Yes,
It
now we
says,
can.
what is SCORE?
Okay, yeah. So the data you see in the handouts and you will see on the screen is from the SCORE index. SCORE is Social Cohesion and Reconciliation Index. It's an evidence-based multidisciplinary methodology that SEED developed in partnership with UN in 2012. It was born from Peacebuilding initiative in Cyprus. And then the methodology grew out of Cyprus, and we have calibrated it to 23 countries. So now adapted it to the context in these countries. So our focus had been policy and programmatic relevance in the country rather than broader ranking or comparison of countries. And it's a multidisciplinary tool in the sense that it combines participatory research with advanced analysis and statistics. And it also looks at conflict and peaceful social change from multiple dimensions: human security, life skills, mental health, civic attitudes, intergroup relations, and we look at the intersection and how these different dimensions interact with each other. What I want to, or the conclusions or takeaways I've drawn were from 6 different data sets. We've got 23, but I've had a chance to kind of see what's comparable, what patterns we can see in these 6 different data sets. 5 of them are from West Africa, and 1 of them is English-speaking Caribbean, including 6 island states in the Caribbean. All of them were conducted face-to-face household surveys based on stratified random sampling. And the center of the investigation was support for women's leadership, where how do we look for support for women's leadership, at least in theory. This doesn't mean that the behaviors are in this direction or that the structures and the systems allow for women's leadership to flourish. But is there support among the populace for women's leadership? And we asked people to what extent they trust women leaders, to what extent they think there should be more women leaders in their communities. Do they think that women can be executives, women can be presidents, can they be good leaders and good managers? And across the board, we see, from 0 to 10, the scores are from 0 to 10, and how we kind of build a mean and an indicator around it. And 0 being no one, no women, no men, young people, old people, anywhere, rural, urban, nowhere in the country support women's leadership at all. And 10 being everyone prevalently and strongly supports that there should be more women leaders and that they trust them. So we see strong support in Côte d'Ivoire, we see strong support in Burkina Faso, somewhat strong support in English-speaking Caribbean. But interestingly, we see mediocre support in Liberia and Mali. And I thought this was interesting because Liberia had a female president for many years. And in fact, we see that this score is actually decreasing in Liberia since 2018 and change of power. This has been going down year by year. Of course, these are numbers, right? We need to attach a lot of meaning and stories to these numbers. Does 5.4 in Liberia, does it mean that there is polarization among the populace where there's some people who really support it and some people who really don't? Or does it mean ambivalence, that people see women's leadership as non-essential, it's not on top of their priorities, so they're kind of in between, neither support nor against it? But this was kind of the big picture to see where support for women's leadership, at least in theory and people's perceptions, stood in some of the countries that we studied. And based on these data sets, I kind of took away 3 insights and 3 patterns that I'd like to share with you. One of them is the mindset and practice gap. And across all these data sets, there is a mindset and practice gap. And this manifests itself in different ways. But at the end of it, what it means is that women's leadership and support for gender rights don't go hand in hand. The correlation between the two, the link between the two is weaker than we originally assumed. When we were looking at the data, we assumed that, if you support women's rights, you'll support women's leadership and vice versa. And that's not what we see when we look at the data. They're underpinned by different stereotypes. If the cultural stereotypes or norms in the country, in the context, in the community or the demographic group is about women's decision-making capacity, or is it about their rights to assets and inheritance or household goods? So there are many different stereotypes that underpin support for women's leadership and support for gender rights. And this highlights that compassionate leadership is not only a policy goal, but a norm shifting tool, because this link from rights to leadership or vice versa is not automatic. The second pattern we see is that trauma and insecurity suppresses participation. This is expected. This was our hypothesis looking at the data. But paradoxically, it also catalyzes women's leadership as mediators, as caregivers, as organizers by necessity. But when the leadership appears out of necessity, particularly in fragile contexts, this means the leadership is emerging despite the system, not because of the system. And of this then could mean that it doesn't challenge or transform stereotypes. Leadership is emerging, it's a resilience capacity, but not necessarily a transformative momentum that can challenge the hard-coded patriarchal elements. What we also see when we look at it from a trauma and insecurity angle is that human security elements from food security, we look at food security, personal security, political, economic, religious, various types of human security. But what we see is that when it comes to political security, gender gap is consistently large and unyielding across all of the data sets that we look at. There are gaps between genders, but particularly when it comes to political security, this is where it's unyielding and really large and consistent across different time points and different contexts, which tells us that human security is not it must be treated as an input to leadership, not as an outcome of leadership. The third takeaway and the final takeaway is that the gender values are diverging among youth, and this is a warning sign. And there have been other studies, particularly in the global north, and also I saw some studies in economists that talk about the divergence, but we are seeing it in fragile and conflict affected contexts too. And this goes, to me, this means that it goes beyond social media, or it goes beyond a couple of influencers in social media or infel movement. So across many contexts, we are seeing a generational divergence, where young women are moving more progressive than their mothers, and young men are moving more conservative than their fathers. This poses a long-term risk to gender-responsive leadership cultures. If this phenomena is long-term and it's happening globally or continentally, this is a long-term risk and a warning sign, because it could undermine family cohesion, it could undermine parenting, it could undermine democratic decision-making and mechanisms of democratic decision-making, and it's a big long-term risk to what we want to achieve in terms of compassionate leadership and this transformation of those systemic structures. So what I'm going to do next is show you a snippet of an evidence why I'm saying and why I'm drawing these takeaways and what the data told us, only from one context at a time. I don't want to bore you or overwhelm you with too much stats. But why do we see this mindset practice gap? What does it mean? And what is the data telling us? When we look at the data and we plot people on quadrants and say we can have 4 groups. Theoretically, we can have 4 groups of people if we want to see how rights and leadership manifest, and whether it goes hand in hand. And we can have a most ideal group where people support both leadership and rights. They're comprehensive equality champions. We could have an alarming group, people support no rights and no leadership. Women, they're oppressive, they're exclusive of women in general. Or we can have groups that they say women's leadership is good, but it doesn't extend to rights very freely, or rights are okay and essential, but leadership is a luxury. And when we've done this analysis in Liberia and other contexts as well, we see a similar pattern. Leadership good, rights not so much. We see almost equal numbers of women and men in this group, and we can interpret it in different ways. It could mean that leadership of women is okay on family and community level, and it doesn't extend to rights. Or it could also mean that elite women leader elsewhere in a city, in the capital is okay, but not in my family, not in my community. It could, I mean, of course, it's open to interpretation, but it helps us to see the profiles of people who fall into these groups, to understand them better, so that we can be more precise, bespoke, and fine-tune our programs and policies that we can help build interventions with a greater likelihood of impact. Then we have half as many men in the group where rights are good and leadership not so much. So they support women's rights, but when it comes to supporting women in leadership positions, it's more challenged. This might also mean rights come first and leadership is a next step, or it might mean that rights are politically correct or rights are essential. We have changed the mindset about rights, but in practice, leadership is more systemic, more norm-driven when it comes to elections, and not seen as essential or as fundamental for women to be represented. And in Liberia, we see many women, while advocating economic rights of other women, express less confidence in female leaders compared to men. And most interesting group, and it's a considerable chunk of the population when we look at the data and respondents, is the ideal group, but there is half as many women in this group than men. So there does it mean self-oppression? Does it mean that patriarchal norms and narratives are very strong in households, or lack of confidence? But it again helps us understand the target groups and how our programs can help shift these. The good news is that the alarming group is empty. Nobody actually fell into that category in the analysis. When it comes to security and adversity, this trauma and how it curbs women's leadership. We're seeing this in data, and I'm showing Côte d'Ivoire as an example, and we again see the same pattern in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, that political security is the element of human security where the difference is the largest, and it's the most chronic, most systemic one. It's also because political security is not temporary, it doesn't fluctuate, whereas economic security could fluctuate with shocks, with recession. Food security could fluctuate with seasons. Economic security doesn't fluctuate. And this is particularly an important gap, and we again detect it systemically across all the contexts, that it's because it's foundational to inclusive governance. It is foundational to civic trust, to sustainable peace. Political security is the cornerstone of human security because it shapes how individuals interact with power, interact with institutions and the state. So not only we see that women have less political security, or they're more politically insecure, they fear repercussions, they don't feel that they have agency, and they're more voice poor. But it reflects not only their subjective experiences of exclusion, but objective structural inequalities as well. And again, this is how we're linking it to security, adversity, and in terms of leadership. And the last one, this diverging gender values in youth. Looking at English-speaking Caribbean, where the pattern is super clear, but again, we see it elsewhere. You see, when we look at gender stereotypes, as the age groups, the younger age groups have a wider gap between men and women than older age groups. When we look at whether people think there's too much emphasis placed on women's rights and men are losing out, there's a bigger gap again between young men and young women compared to other age groups. Social tolerance towards LGBTQI people, again, the gap between young men and young women are much bigger than older age groups. So this is, it's worth checking and testing whether what we're seeing is a global phenomenon, and what does it mean in the long term. The other elements, so how do we then put support for women in leadership positions at the center of this investigation, and what are we seeing in terms of correlates? Across 5 countries, we looked at different dimensions, how it correlates with support, and we've seen that family connectedness, intergenerational bonding, They're kind of the same, tell us the same story, that household and family level interventions are important. They're an entry point. Because at the household level, the family level, that's where, in the example of mother's leadership, that's where the leadership qualities, values, and capacities are shaping. And we are seeing this in the data. Then we see that support for women in leadership positions link to intergroup harmony and peaceful tendencies. So the data is confirming that this is pretty much about peace building. Intergroup harmony is about horizontal social cohesion and inclusion, and peaceful tendencies is about rejection of violence, weaponization, or revenge tendency. And then we see education and critical thinking, so soft skills and how educators are an entry point for support for women in leadership positions, and how this also kind of plays again and again across different data sets in at least West Africa. So my conclusions and entry points from this investigation and reflections, I think kind of hopefully complements the discussion so far, is that support for women's leadership and support for gender rights, not necessarily hand in hand. They're underpinned by different stereotypes. Trauma and insecurity suppress meaningful participation, especially in education and in public life. Political insecurity and political participation is a chronic human security challenge. And again, this is talks about women's leadership in political sphere, maybe separate from economic sphere or at the community level. So there is a need to focus on stereotypes, target households on the family level and educators, and to provide psychosocial safety and service delivery as an infrastructure. Otherwise, the pathway to women's meaningful socioeconomic inclusion and leadership would be blocked. There's also a need for both contextual nuance analysis, so we can understand what the obstacles and stereotypes are very contextually close to the communities, but at the same time, more comparative meta-analysis is needed, so to see which one of these are broader dynamics on continental or a global level that needs broader, bigger policy reactions. I want to leave you with compassionate leadership is not a soft skill, it's a structural intervention. It's not a policy goal, but a norm-shifting tool. It is foundational to achieving women, peace, and security agenda, and very empirically related to peace outcomes. And it's time that we move it from the margins of recognition to the center of policy and programming. And I will end it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Fascinating.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. It's all like, yeah, our minds are being blown here. So thank you. And so we have also joining with us from Oxfam, Marie-Sophie Pedersen. And I wanted to mention, because you had, you're one of the co-authors of a report that just came out recently, and I think that's what you're going to speak about, but I'll put it in the chat as well, but it's called Beyond Rhetoric, Feminist Leadership for a Transformative Women, Peace, and Security Agenda at 25. I forgot to, in the introduction, I think it was obvious to everyone, but we are commemorating the 25th anniversary of Women, Peace, and Security, Security Council Resolution 1325, just so to put it on the record here, that's what this is commemorating as well. This week, there are lots of activities here in New York around that, and so that's part of the challenge always of finding, getting the right speakers also in the room together with us as far as the UN participation. So that was a challenge, but I'm really excited to hear what Marie-Sophie has to share with us. So I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this space, and I'm glad I was able to join you. Very honored. And yes, I will be speaking to the report. Thanks for linking in the chat. But rather than going through a PowerPoint presentation about the key findings from the report, I will try to respond to the questions you had sent me. But I also encourage you to join. We have an online launch event for the report on Thursday. So I also link the registration link for that, so you can join that. And it's a report, called Beyond Rhetoric, Feminist Leadership for a Transformative Women, Peace and Security Agenda. And it's co-authored by both Oxfam and the Researchers Without Borders. I'll try to respond to the different questions you gave me. So what are the guiding norms, values, and constraints in the way we approach leadership at the moment? And I think we have all reflected on this, so I won't repeat a lot of what's been said, but we obviously are in a moment of polycrisis with record levels of militarization and armed conflict, the closing of borders, this shift from multilateralism to a multi-polar world, the challenges to the rule-based order, assaults on civil society, and this growing backlash against gender justice, the rights and bodily autonomy of women and LGBTQI people. So that's also what we are documenting in the report. So this enhanced militarization focus on national security rather than human rights and international law. So this very masculinized approach, focusing on the use of force, might and power, diplomacy through people in suits, very much also as we see the UN Security Council, P4 as a handful of military powers with the veto power. So a lot of performativity. So while we see that many governments have this past quarter of a century of the Women, Peace and Security agenda, we see that many governments globally have increasingly adopted both national action plans on women, peace and security, as well as feminist foreign policy, but then failed to implement them or later retrench them. So we see this, that a lot of the governments, the same governments that pledged support in year 2000 to the Security Council Resolution 1325 have been paying it lip service. And that's also why we call the report Beyond Rhetoric, because we see that we have at the normative level, we have it all on paper. We have 10 resolutions. We have had several hundreds of feminist peace builders and women's rights civil society briefers brief the council. But we need to go beyond the talk to active listening and accountability and action. To go back to the roots of this agenda that was originally shaped by feminist peace builders and feminist civil society, calling for feminist peace and feminist values and principles, which are now being challenged increasingly. So, and we also see the same, we see that NATO members have increased defense spending by $159 billion over the past decade, while global funding for gender responsive peace or the Women, Peace and Security agenda has flatlined and is now in free fall. And we see many of the same NATO powers that are now increasing military spending and who many of them have feminist foreign policies and national action plans, including some of the UN Security Council members. They have failed to act in the face of atrocities and gendered violations in several countries, including the 4 countries that we are focusing on in this paper, which is the occupied Palestinian territories, Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, and Colombia. Overall, at the moment, funding for gender conflict, peace and security related aid only accounts for 2.6% of total ODA. And we also see that, so the period we were documenting, looking at ODA data between the year 2014 to 2023, we saw that only 0.1% of overall ODA went to women's rights and women-led organizations. And UN Women has recently documented that by the end of this year, it's expected that half of them will be closing down because of these funding cuts, including cuts by the US, where they cut their funding for women, peace, and security by 38%. And many more cuts are predicted. It's being predicted that 17 of the largest OECD DAC donors will fall by around 16% by this year, with further cuts expected next year. And we're seeing that these cuts are having disproportionate impacts on gender and peace and security related ODA. At the same time, as you will also have seen in the UN Secretary General's report that was just released also on women, peace and security, we see that attacks on women and girls and gender violations in conflict and crisis are increasing at alarming rates, including further increases in conflict-related sexual violence and other grave violations. This, I think, is especially also seen in Israel's genocide in Gaza, including the violent repression in the West Bank, on top of the decades of illegal occupation, where we see the violations of the rights and lives of women are being severely violated, including through what was referred to as reproductive violence, or in this report, the actors that we interviewed from the occupied Palestinian territory referred to this as reproductive genocide, as a term that they wanted to use to amplify this. So another question I was given is how do women claim and sustain leadership despite these challenges? And something that really came out in the research for this report is that the same feminist peace movements that originally pushed for the creation of 1325 and the Women, Peace and Security agenda continue to reclaim it and reshape it today. So as one of the quotes in the report, feminist-led peace hasn't failed, it's been betrayed. And we see that women peace builders are being left to nurture their communities faced by war, conflict, crisis, and shoulder most of this responsibility, as there's not enough political or financial backing to address these issues. So the real contribution of the Women, Peace and Security agenda should not just be about the inclusion of women in peace processes, but about a more fundamental challenge of these unequal power structures. And this is a process that continues to be led by many feminist actors in many crisis and conflict settings, and often at a very great personal risk. And something that was being called for by many of the women and feminist actors interviewed through this research is that women, peace and security, they see it as a political tool for resistance, justice and accountability, not a technocratic sort of lip service, how it's often being used by states, was something that came out very strongly. So, I mean, there are many examples, but I think I won't have the time to go into all of them. But I encourage you to read about the examples of this in the report. We see how in for example, Eastern DRC, women drive survival-led advocacy and localized peace building. Despite the lack of funding, especially since the recent US aid cuts, and a very constrained political space, also fueled by the mineral extraction and high levels of conflict-related sexual and gender-based violence. So the report really shows that in the face of all this turbulence, the voices and leadership of women and LGBTQIA individuals persist. And they are redefining peace through care, resistance, and liberation. So the final question I was given was about how can we measure and encourage compassionate leadership? And this was really, that's sort of the end note of our report. And that's what we really put forward in the recommendations is this call for a redefining or a reclaiming of this agenda from a feminist peace approach. So an agenda that seeks to disrupt rather than accommodate power and vested interest, and which recognizes power, inequality, exploitation of natural resources, the failure to address climate crisis as forms of violence. Though it should, and a feminist peace that goes beyond the absence of war to include justice, care, equality, and dismantling patriarchy, militarism, and colonial legacies. So that a feminist peace agenda should not be instrumentalized or depoliticized because it is inherently political. Yeah, so some of the key aspects of what some of the many people who were interviewed for this paper call for was that the women, peace, and security agenda from a feminist peace perspective should redefine security as human security. It should be transformative, inclusive, intersectional, and accountable. It should be queer and intersectional and based on lived experiences. It should be intergenerational, and it should promote transnational solidarity. So among the many recommendations, there's really a call for feminist leadership as the key to this transformation. And that also would require reforming a lot of the global peace and security institutions, including the Security Council, but also the OECD, IMF, other institutions that are not currently practicing compassionate leadership or feminist leadership. And that there must be a strengthened accountability mechanism for this agenda going forward, linked to the broader human rights frameworks that exist already, rather than seeing it as a sort of standalone agenda that's not linked to other parts of international law and international human rights law. And that it needs to be funded and with the political backing to make it real. Otherwise, this anniversary will be a mark of its decline, not its maturity. So I think I will finish here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Everything is so rich, the conversations today, it's like we're all like, it's like, yeah, it's a feast. And so as much as possible, if there's anything written, well, we're going to study your report. Marie, thank you. And Kristen, Ilke, Dr. Nike, I think anything you have written, maybe we can share with the working group itself, because it's so valuable. And again, so rich. We have only a couple minutes for maybe some reflections, and then I'm going to hand it to Lily to close us off. But if there's anything from the audience, there was somebody with the hand up. I'm not sure if it's just an old hand. Okay, you just have to turn on your video if you want to say something, or if you would like to ask something. Kaushal, if you want to show your video first and then unmute. Otherwise, any thoughts in the room?
Can I just say quickly while the other person finds the, yesterday I went to this event, the 25th anniversary in ECOSOC chamber with Amina Muhammad, Sima Baha. I mean, I just literally took it out because I walked away so disappointed.
Yes.
I walked away with my heart broken, almost in tears, because and I thought, I don't even know how to put it into words, but the reason I want to bring it up is because I feel like this is the committee that I want to spend my time on, because there's stuff happening, but we need to figure out how we can bring this forward, right? Because each one of you is powerful. I really do feel that. There's an incredible energy, and the speakers today inspired me so much. And I'm telling you, you were better than Muhammad. With all due respect, I look up to these people. I love them. I give my life to them. And then I'm like, why can't they talk like this? Why can't they act like we've got to put their feet on fire? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
May I just add something
Yeah.
to that? Yeah, I mean, last week we had the chance to meet here in order also to open this box, right? And I had the chance to discuss with the representative of UN Women. And you know, I've been in the system for more than 25 years on the ground and at HQ level, both in Brussels and here in New York, chairing the 6th committee, which is in charge of all peacekeeping operations and all this. And unfortunately, I have to say that the UN is very much and has been focusing a lot on managing conflict. I am a deep believer on prevention. We have to shift the narratives. They're all very good at drafting beautiful statements. And now they are focusing all their efforts in increasing women participation in mediation processes. And I said, no, we have to shift first the culture. I mean, make a cultural shift, as you precisely said. We have to change the norms. We don't want conflict. We want to prevent them. We know there is an economy of conflict. Let's be very honest here. So there is an economy of conflict. There is a lot of people benefiting from current conflicts. And this is what they need to understand. The culture of peace is more profitable than the culture of war. And we know that right now, again, they shifted to that logic where we all benefit from war. That's not true. So if we want to reach development, is the culture of peace where we need to invest our money and efforts. So again, yeah, Amina Mohammed and all these are again pushing for increasing women in mediation processes. First, you don't hold the pen on these processes. You are waiting in a waiting room to be called to mediate a conflict when you are in this position. So we will never be called there. Let's be honest, unless, again, we change the top leadership of this system. So I very much, endorse totally what was said, that unfortunately, resilience and women leadership often comes from rejection from the system, where we are confronting the system because we have the critical thinking to understand that the current system is not working. So I very much encourage all this group, to keep on going, to keep on raising our voices, to unite our voices with those, for instance, I don't know, the, Secretary General campaign and all this. Unfortunately, all these movements are born from a rejection. So we have been rejected. No, it's true. We've been rejected from the main system, and we have to build this resistant movement where we are claiming a cultural shift and a different leadership to shift the direction.
So beautifully said. Perfect segue. Take us home.
Yeah, because it's my personal experience, so I know what I'm talking about.
Did you want to share something, Anna?
I guess I'll say that from a youth perspective, it's always so inspiring to see just how powerful and passionate all the ladies here are. And I think it was so interesting to see, especially on this, which was beautifully done. I was very intrigued, I think especially when and the number 3, diverging gender values in youth, and seeing how the youth is impacted and what they're thinking and the differences and where young men and women are going, and the interest on women's rights. I think that was really impactful, and it made me think about my youth and also in my university and the young men and women that are my peers and what their priorities are on women's rights. Because I think, as you beautifully said, it's so important and it's needed now more than ever. And I think the youth, as in many other subjects, we are going to be the ones leading this. So I just wanted to say thank you. I feel immensely inspired, and I see the fire and passion, and it brings so much joy and optimism to what's to come for women's rights.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you. Anna's one of our interns here at the BSC for the next 6 months.
so great.
I'm so glad you're joining us. So when we planned this workshop, we said, oh, we're not going to do a typical hour and a half. We're going to make it 2 hours so we have enough time to really interact. And with the 2 hours, we still had to cut out one of the sessions that we planned to be able to speak to each other. Yes, you see? So
You're having fun.
I think this shows us that like there's just so much more that needs to be discussed and that we need to learn from each other, you know, like all this experience from like this experience that you just shared from being inside the system and seeing how it works. And I think you're not the only one. There's so many people who are thinking about like the internal functioning of the organizations that they're in, because that's, I think, some of what the data that was showing is that it's not that we don't have the research or the data that tells us what needs to change, but I think maybe the next part of the conversation is other people that are generating experience about what some of these cultural shifts can look like, and what can we learn from that process, because we have, like, I think that if often we are very angry with the UN, but I think one thing we can be thankful for the UN for is like the enormous amount of information that is generated by this organization, that gives us confidence in understanding that what we're doing now is not working. So then where can we learn, where can we find experience of things that are working, that people are being experimental, they're being creative, they're looking at things very differently, and how can we draw from different communities? So like looking around the table, we know there are people who are thinking about like the role of religious communities, for example. What does it mean to see women not just as like victims of war and conflict, but as protagonists of creating peaceful societies? Like, so they're just different, and I'm sure there's so much more on with the colleagues who are here online as well, where you're seeing people doing things very differently. So it's this is the second time that the working group has put together a gathering where we invite other people to join us and have a discussion. We're so grateful to Seed and Ilke for joining us. Thank you so much, Dr. Nike and Kristen, Dr. Kristen, for being here with us. Much gratitude to Oxfam and Marie-Sophie for last minute really like coming in and adding the research and sharing with us your report. And we're looking forward to continue to work together. If you're interested in the work of the Peace and Gender Polity Working Group, please write to us. Ivy and I will be more than happy to share with you the things that we are thinking about and welcome you into the family. I feel like we are a family of colleagues working together. And so just with that, thank you so much, everybody. And I hope that you'll be attending other commemorations of 1325 that will help us to think differently and do things differently. So thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yay! Hello? Somebody's hand is raised. Caution.
She just doesn't. Yeah, so just out of abundance of trying to be really cautious and safe, just because the past weeks, I think we've all been unfortunately in spaces where we just want to be cautious. So if you want to share, we just ask that you turn on your camera, just because of recently we've just been in places where, unfortunate things have happened. So I'm so sorry, Kausha, if you had wanted to share something, you're more than welcome to send us an email. But if you're able to, like, please, if you want to speak, we ask that you turn on your camera. I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you for bringing that to our attention, Dr. Nike.
I see that others have turned on their cameras. If you want to, in the tradition of NGO CSW, to turn on your camera and say goodbye, that'd be lovely. It's a wonderful thing that we do. And unmute yourself and say goodbye.
Nice to see you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much.